Welcome to Wizznotes.com Mathematics Video Tutorials. This video tutorial is on number theory quiz number 1 solutions. Let's begin. Question 1. Find the HCF of 12, 24, and 60. Now the HCF stands for the highest common factor. So the question wants us to find the HCF of 12, 24, and 60. And the HCF, the highest common factor, is the factor, and the factor is the number, all the numbers that can be divided into 12 without leaving a remainder, all the numbers that can be divided into 24 without leaving a remainder, and all the numbers that can be divided into 60 without leaving a remainder. And it wants us to determine or to list all those numbers, and then after we list all those numbers for each 12, 24, and 60, we'll look and determine the highest number that can be divided in all three numbers. Okay, let's look at it. So right here we have the factors of 12, and we write the factors of 12 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So all these numbers can be divided into 12 without leaving a remainder. And we'll do the same thing for 24. We'll list all the factors of 24, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. And we'll list all the factors of 60, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. And then we'll look at all the factors for the three numbers and we'll determine which number is the highest number that can be divided into all these three numbers, 12, 24, and 60, without leaving a remainder. And the highest common factor is 12. So 12 is the highest common factor that can be divided, or the highest common factor of the numbers 12, 24, and 60. Okay? Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 asks us to find the inverse of A10 under addition. Alright, when we're finding the inverse of a number under addition, we're basically trying to find out which number, when added to 10, gives us 0. Okay, guys? So that's basically what we're trying to find out. So we can form an equation. We can say, okay, 10 plus x is equal to 0, and we solve for x, and x will be the inverse of 10. Alright, let's look at the solution. So the inverse of 10 is basically, as I said, 10 plus x is equal to 0, and it will make x the subject of the equation. Now, to make x the subject of the equation, we want to get x alone on the left hand side. And to get x alone on the left hand side, we subtract 10 from both sides of the equation. So we subtract 10 from the left hand side, and that will be 10 minus 10, that will be 0. So we have x alone on the left hand side, and that is equal to 0 minus 10, or x is equal to minus 10. So minus 10 is the inverse of 10 under addition. Alrighty, let's move on to part 2 of question 2. And part 2 asks us to find the inverse of minus 5 under multiplication. Now, to find the inverse of a number under multiplication, we're trying to figure out what number, when multiplied by minus 5, gives us 1. So again, we can turn this into an equation. We can say minus 5 times q is equal to 1, and we'll make q the subject of that equation. Alright, let's look at the solution. So the inverse of minus 5 is equal to minus 5 times q equal to 1. Now we're trying to find q. So we're going to make q the subject of this equation. That is, we want to get q alone on the left hand side. Now to get q alone on the left hand side, what we do is we divide both sides of the equation by minus 5. So when we divide the left hand side of the equation by minus 5, the minus 5 will cancel the minus 5 that's already there. And then on the right hand side, we'd have 1 over minus 5. And then that is q is equal to 1 over minus 5, and 1 over minus 5 is the inverse. So 1 over minus 5 is the inverse of minus 5. Why is it the inverse of minus 5? Because when we multiply 1 over minus 5 by minus 5, we'll get 1. Okay, guys? Alright, let's move on to question 3. Question 3. Write an identity that summarizes the associative law under addition. Now, what is the associative law? The associative law basically governs arithmetic operations, and it relates to the arithmetic operations that have to do with addition and multiplication. And it basically says that when you're adding numbers or multiplying numbers, the way how you group them does not affect the sum or the product that you would get as the result. So let's look at the answer. Now remember, we're doing the associative law for addition. So the associative law for addition basically says, as I said, that the way how you group numbers do not affect the sum that we get as a result. So therefore, a plus b in bracket plus c. So if we group a and b and then add to c, we'll get the same answer as if we did a plus and we'll group b plus c. So that is the answer for part 1. You can read the law. It basically says again, recall the associative law states that the sum slash product obtained in an addition slash multiplication is not dependent on how the numbers are grouped. And it is just saying that no matter how we group the numbers, if we make we group b and c and add b and c first, then add a, or if we group a and b and add them first and then add c, we're still going to get the same answer, no matter how we group them. Okay, let's move to part 2. Question 3, part 2. It asks us to find an identity that summarizes the commutative law. Now, the commutative law, and this is on the multiplication. Now, the commutative law basically states that the way in which numbers are ordered does not affect the sum or the product that we get in an arithmetic operation. Now, remember, we're doing this one for multiplication, so let's look at the solution. So the identity that we can write to summarize the commutative law is a times b is equal to b times a. And what this is saying is that if we order it, that will multiply a times b, or if we order it, that will multiply b times a, we're still going to get the same product. So that's basically what the commutative law and the multiplication is saying, that the way in which you order an arithmetic operation under multiplication does not affect the product. Alright, let's go to part C. Now, part 3 asks us to write an identity that summarizes the distributive law. Now, let's look at the solution for that. Now, the distributive law basically shows us how to, ever hear somebody say, oh, expand a bracket? That's the distributive law, shows us how to expand a bracket, and it shows us the relation between an expanded bracket or and the arithmetic operation that is written with a bracket. So it's basically saying that if we have a plus b times c, it is the same as a times c plus b times c. So that's what the distributive law shows. It shows us the relation between an expanded bracket and an arithmetic operation with a bracket. Okay, let's move on. I think this is the last question actually. So thanks for watching this installment of the mathematics video tutorials, and until next time, thanks for making Wizznotes.